You're listening to The Range, Gardner-Webb University live and streaming radio, on-demand programming as well. My name is Jeff Powell. In the studio with me is Ms. Gail Peace, Assistant Director of International Programs here at Gardner-Webb University. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to be here.
You know, the so-called travel ban, I know there's a huge argument whether or not it's actually a ban or not, and it's being played out in the court system as we sit down to record this. You know, I know that's a big issue. A lot of people have talked about that. We've weighed in here on some podcasts with some staff members, some faculty members at Gardner-Webb University about some of the ramifications of that. But that got me thinking about our international students. We have a large number of students who come here to study from various countries around the world. And that's one of the things that you do here at Gardner-Webb University is kind of work with those students and oversee that. We haven't had any problems yet with this travel chaos that sort of has ensued.
Currently, no. It has not created any sorts of limitations or problems for any of our current students. Our students were already back in school, on campus, in the country when this was signed into action. Mm-hmm. So none of our students were affected by that. Has it created stress and concern for our students and parents? Certainly, I'm sure it has. I have not heard directly from them, but I do know for some parents it has been concerning, and rightly so, I think. So, but currently, no, none of our students have had any kind of direct impact from this.
And it's business as usual in those regards, except for the higher levels of maybe concern and stress. Now, of course, the ban affects 7 specific countries, and we don't have any students from those countries. So.
Currently, we do not. That's correct.
And again, it's a fluid situation. It's being worked out through the court system, and so we're not quite sure what's going to come down the road. And, I know at some other institutions there's been some issues about whether international students should return home, et cetera, but we haven't got to that point yet. But it makes me come to mind, makes me think about the fact that we do have lots of international students here on campus who travel to the United States and study at the United States. So some of them are athletes, others are not. Any kind of numbers? How many international students are we talking about?
Roughly this semester we have about 80, and we stay close to that number. It fluctuates a little bit every semester. Currently, about 50 of those, give or take a few, probably few more than 50, are athletes. They're undergraduates, and all but a handful of those. We have maybe 4 or 5 who are not athletes within that undergraduate population. The rest of those, the graduate students, primarily are business school students. We have 4 or 5 who are divinity school students and a few DCP students.
So a lot of reasons for folks to come here from other countries and study, whether it's to play sports, in addition, to be student athletes, or if it's to study religion, or if it's to study business, etc. So what are some of the unique challenges that face international students?
The challenges vary because you can't really lump international students into one group because we have so many countries represented. I think right now we have around 27 countries represented here. We have 6 of the 7 continents represented, which is, for Gardner-Webb, that's kind of an amazing thing for Willing Springs to have a population of folks from all over the world.
But no one from Antarctica.
No, we don't have any representation from Antarctica
That's
currently.
understandable. But all the other continents, that's amazing. I had no idea that it was quite that widespread.
It's really a lot of fun to have so many students from so many different places. So when you talk about challenges, the challenges can vary. Many students who come here and are not native English speakers, the language can be a great challenge. Students have to have a certain level of proficiency to be admitted to Gardner-Webb, but coming here and then being confronted with English day in, day out, being confronted with the academic vocabulary that's required in the classroom, that can be very challenging for students, particularly the first year, just becoming accustomed to hearing English all day, every day. Customs, holidays, even learning the academic environment can be challenging for students. In many countries, the relationship between students and professors is very different, even in European countries. So when students come here and they try to grow accustomed to the way that professors are very open and want interaction with students, the level of discussion that happens in the classroom, working together with their peers, all of that can be challenging for them, because for many of them that's not what they were accustomed to in their home countries, in their educational background. So lots of challenges. For a lot of international students, public transportation is an issue because many of them are accustomed to living in places where public transportation is very accessible. And they get to Boiling Springs.
And there's not any.
There's not any. They want to know, how do I get to the airport? Or how do I get to Shelby? And that's a challenge for a lot of them.
I'm sure. I'm interested in that idea that you brought up, that styles of learning are very different in some other places. Like you say, here, there's a lot of emphasis on interaction, speaking up in class, discussing. But in other places, it's sort of more hierarchical, where you just sort of sit there and receive the information.
Exactly. That's exactly the challenge for some students.
I also understand that in some other countries, some other cultures, there's less emphasis on academic honesty.
That's correct.
And that can, I'm sure, be a problem if you come from a place where plagiarism isn't really an issue, and you come to the United States and it's a big deal.
Right. And it's not so much, I don't think necessarily that it's not looked at as being dishonest as much as it's looked at as being a way to honor the person who originated the idea, and it's looked at as being complimentary to that person in that you are sharing that.
Right.
So Americans are we want to give credit, and we're very individualistic, and that is in contrast to some of our students who come here. They come from cultures where there's very much more an idea of sharing, and so the idea of having to cite sources is a new concept. And so that can create some struggles for some of our students in learning how important that is. The idea even of a liberal arts program can be new. Many students come here with this experience being, if you're going to study business or you're going to study literature, you come and you focus on that one subject area. They come in sometimes and ask me, why do I have to take history? Why do I have to take math? This is not my major. So the idea that liberal arts education encompasses a wide range of areas of learning is a new concept that we have to do some educating with sometimes.
Well, speak a little more to that. You've talked about differences in language, and you've talked about differences in learning styles and teaching styles, and just cultural differences to this approach of what's expected and how it works. What kind of services, what kind of programs how do you work with these international students to get beyond these issues?
It's a team effort, really. I am kind of a clearinghouse. I hopefully can establish relationships with our students. When they initially come as undergraduates, I do an orientation, our office does, trying to help them learn some of the ins and outs of the campus and the community. And in some ways, that orientation is a way to help them learn that if they have any question or they have any need or concern, they can come to our office, and we can then help them find the resources to manage that. I put them oftentimes in touch with the LEAP program, where they can get tutoring if they have issues in a class where they are struggling, with the Writing Center, where they can get help with their writing, with the counseling office, which obviously can offer wonderful services for students who are struggling. That's another area where there can be a big difference in thinking that comes out of their cultural background. For many students, any kind of counseling or seeking help is a struggle for a lot of them, and it is for some of our domestic students as well. A lot of times, for all of us, it can be hard to ask for help, but in some cultures, that idea that you need some assistance with things is not accepted so readily in those cultures. So that can be a struggle. Homesickness can be challenging for students, for sure, as it can be for any student. But imagine if you come from a different culture, you are so far away from home and family, and you can't run home for the weekend.
Right.
You just can't do it because of expense. So that can be a big challenge for our students. And getting through that first semester where you're dealing with everything that hits you all at once, and working through those feelings of being homesick, being isolated. Some of our students may be the only student from their particular country here. Mm-hmm. So there's a sense of being alone and a sense of that isolation because you don't have anybody else even who speaks your language, right, which is challenging.
Do you find that there's sort of a camaraderie between the international students? They may be from different countries, they may have different languages and customs, etc., but it seems to me it would be natural for them to sort of hang together.
They do. Oh, definitely. Particularly, we find that on the athletic teams, they kind of become family really quickly. And that's a really wonderful thing that happens for our international athletes. Those coaches and teams do a great job of embracing those students, helping them connect, helping them to adjust to the community and to campus life. So they do a lot of things for us that, they lay a lot of groundwork that our office doesn't have to do. And we work with the coaches. I try to work with them as much as possible and encourage them to send students my way if they have any needs that they find it's kind of outside of the area that they're comfortable with handling. But helping them connect to each other is important, and they do find ways. There is a shorthand, a connection they have with one another that, because they have to go through some of those same kinds of experiences, even though they come from different cultures, they have to go through the process of getting here. They go through this process of adjusting to life here. They share some of the same struggles with, well, maybe they're from different countries, but they're used to having public transportation, or they can't find the foods that they're accustomed to. So they share in that. That's another thing that they have to adjust to is American food. That can be really challenging for international students.
You talked about not being able to go home on the weekends, and of course sometimes it's much more than that. I mean, it may be a year before you can go home. For some of these students, the distances and the expense in travel is just so great. So what are some of the things that you can do for the students or assist them in doing to sort of have somebody to hang out with, somebody to talk to, particularly during the breaks when so many other students are gone?
Right. Well, fortunately, a lot of our students, because they make friends, they get invited to go home with their friends, and I've heard wonderful stories from students who have been able to go and share with families experiencing Thanksgiving, going at breaks and experiencing. I know one of our students went home and got to go hunting, and they had never done that. So enjoying some of the opportunities with some of their friends in getting to be with an American family during holidays and experiencing some of the things from that vantage point. So that's wonderful that they connect with their friends, and Gardner-Webb students are so welcoming and encouraging and inviting people to come and participate. Some of the students stay here. Some of the athletes over particularly Christmas, basketball students are here, and so I know coaches do a lot to have students into their homes and have functions and do things to help the students to make that stay here a little bit more easy to take. And sometimes we forget that American holidays are not celebrated around the world.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is not a holiday.
Right.
So our students who are here over the Thanksgiving break are not necessarily experiencing that as a time when they're away from family because it's a holiday and they're feeling sad because they're missing a holiday. For the vast majority of international students, I don't think there's any other country that celebrates Thanksgiving when we celebrate it, and I think there may be only Canadians.
Canada may be the only other country. Yeah.
So, while we may be thinking, oh, these poor students are here and they don't have anybody to be with, well, for most of them, they're like, this is a break. I'm enjoying my break.
I'm taking some time off.
So it's not necessarily that they are homesick because it's a holiday.
Of course, I can imagine the counter to that is also true, that maybe they come from a culture where there's a particular holiday, and here it's just business as usual. With
You're absolutely right.
most students not even knowing that it would be a holiday for that student.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting stuff. And what really strikes me, I think, is it's easy to think about how this could be an enriching experience for the student traveling here to study, but it just enriches the entire campus and the entire student body.
You're absolutely right. I think it offers a way for our American students to experience parts of the world that they might never be able to travel and go and see themselves, but they get to meet someone up close and personal, become friends with that person, learn about that country. I think for our students, our domestic students, particularly those who might never have thought about traveling, to become friends with someone who has traveled far from home, is willing to give up time with family and to be such a long distance from home to come here to study. That takes a lot of courage, and that takes a lot of study and discipline to be able to do that. I think that is a wonderful example for all of our students and for our community. I think it enriches not only our campus, but it enriches our community. One of the things I feel really strongly about is encouraging our international students to interact with elementary school students. And I've been able to take a group of our students out to one of our local elementary schools to share. And I know there are some other instructors and faculty members who've done the same. And it is enriching to the international students. And it's wonderful for our Cleveland County students to be able to meet students who've come from other places. It emphasizes the importance of education, that people are willing to travel long distances and be away from home and family to study and to play a sport, perhaps, that they love to play. It says something about discipline, the importance of education, determination. It's inspiring. And the feedback that I've received from our Gardner-Webb international students who've been able to go participate in this is that it is so enriching and inspiring to them to be able to share with these students. They don't realize what a wonderful gift they have to give. And I think it's so good for our international students to be able to give back to the community in that way and to feel like what they bring here is so valuable and enriching to the community and the campus.
So well said. In the studio with us right now, Gail Peace, Assistant Director of International Programs here at Gardner-Webb. And I really think you've really pointed out how this is a enriching experience for both the student who comes here from abroad and also for us here on campus and for the community as a whole. So thanks so much. If folks want to get in touch, if they email us, I will be glad to pass along that email to you. Just email us here at the station, info at WGWG.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeff.